Hello and happy Tuesday, everyone. Today we're going to be able to find the area of a circle given the radius or diameter. If you don't know what these two words mean yet, you will shortly. So let's do Tuesday's warm-up. It says the grid shown below is in the shape of a rectangle. What is the area in square units of the shaded part of the region? So as you can tell, the shaded part is actually a triangle. So we're going to use the triangle formula. They don't give us the dimensions, but we can count the dimensions. So if you count the bottom here, that's 6 units, and if you count the side, the height, that's 8. So the area for the formula for area of a triangle would be area is equal to 1/2 base times height. Area is equal to 1/2. The base is 6, so we do times 6, and then height is 8, and then 1/2 times 6 times 8 gives us 24 units squared, which is letter B. Okay. So two things before we move on. We are working with the number pi today, and pi is a symbol that stands for a very, very long number that goes on forever and ever and ever, but we estimate it to be 3.14. Obviously, it's way more digits than that. It goes on forever. But here are your options for today and for the rest of this unit. Whenever you're using pi, if you have one of these scientific calculators, I'd like you to use the pi key. You just press that in and it comes up as an estimated 3.14, so it's the closest that we're going to get. And then if you don't have that calculator and you've been using Google, if you just Google scientific calculator, you can use the pi key. Here it is. Same thing, you can press pi and then it'll come up as much as the calculator can hold. If you have neither of these things, which I'd imagine everyone has at least that, you can estimate and use 3.14 as pi. So you have these three options when plugging in pi into a formula, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, once we get through the lesson, this will make more sense, and you might want to go back to it, or maybe I'll go back to it. All right, let's start the lesson. I went over before where to find pi. If you have the calculator, just go ahead and use that. If you have the Google you're using as a calculator, use that. And if you have neither of those things, you can just estimate using 3.14, which is right here. So you can just type any number, whether it's 100, just type 100 and then press that key, and the little 2 comes up to get squared. Hopefully that helps. So today's lesson is on area of circles, and let's just remind ourselves what area is. Area is the amount of space an object takes up, a 2D object. And this is the only shape we're working with today is a circle. So as far as a circle goes, we have a couple parts to the circle that we have to be able to know. The center of the circle, that is called the origin, or the center. Sometimes we call it both. The distance from the center to the edge of a circle, that is called the radius. And the distance from one edge of the circle crossing through the origin, hitting the other, hitting the other edge of the circle, that we call the diameter. There's one other part of the circle that we'll get to later this week, but we'll start with these three. So let's write the definitions of radius and diameter down. All right, so take a minute and write those definitions down, but we've already talked about them. So we have these little, examples here that we can do first. We have to know the relationship between radius and diameter in order to do this entire lesson. You have to know that radius is 1/2 of the diameter, and diameter is twice or 2 times the radius. So they have this relationship of 2. So if I have a radius of 3, that means my diameter is going to be 6. If I have a radius of 10, that means my diameter is going to be 20. Okay, does everyone see that? I could do the other way too. If I have a diameter of 50, I have a radius of 25. So they all have, it's 1/2 or 2 is the relationship. So the first set of questions, it says, given the radius, find the diameter. Of course, I just use that as an example. So if you're given the radius, the diameter is double. So if I have 3, then my diameter is going to be 6. If I have 4.5, then my diameter is going to be times 2 that, so 9 centimeters. If I have 11.1, then I'm going to do, again, times 2, so 22.2 feet. Now, given the diameter, find the radius. This is the opposite, so this is half. So divide by 2. Double was times by 2. If I have the diameter of 10, my radius is going to be 5. If I have a diameter of 15.4, my radius is going to be 7.7 centimeters. And if I have a diameter of 160.3, my radius is going to be 80.15 inches. Okay, so hopefully this is a good understanding of how to find the radius given the diameter, and vice versa. Okay, so you have to be able to do that in order to find the area of any circle. So let's move on. Let's practice the area of a circle. So it's important to know this formula, but that's the formula that we use for circle always. A is equal to pi times r squared, where r, hopefully, you know, is the radius. Okay, so you need the radius in order to do these questions. So example 1, this is what I want you to do. A is equal to pi r squared. So you have the formula written down. That's a necessity. It needs to be written down. Then look at what you have. Do you have the radius or do you have the diameter? Hopefully you're thinking, okay, I have the radius. You know you have the radius because it's half the way across. So we know that this is the radius. So I'm good. I can move on. So A is equal to pi times radius squared. So since the radius is 12, we need to square 12. So I missed reading the directions, and that was bad because it's very important you understand them. It says find the area of each circle. Give your answer in terms of pi and rounded to the nearest tenth. So to give your answer in terms of pi means you leave pi in your answer. So for example, the next step to example 1, area is equal to pi times 12 squared. Well, 12 squared is 144, and then we would just kind of tack on pi at the end of it. This is still area, so this is still in mile or square units, so this would be miles squared. So that is my answer in terms of pi. And if they ask you to find the nearest tenth, we have to then use the pi key on our calculator to get our answer round to the nearest tenth. So you type in your calculator 144 times pi, however I told you before. And I have 452.389, so we'd round that to 452.4. So 452.4, and this is miles squared as well, and this is an estimate, so it's not exactly equal to. These are all going to be estimates. So as a reminder, only if they're asking to round to the nearest tenth. If the directions say leave your answer in terms of pi, then we would leave pi in our answer. We wouldn't have to calculate it. All right, let's try example 2. So again, we're still finding the area, so we know A is equal to pi times radius squared. But this is the whole way across, and like we discussed before, the whole way across is the diameter. So we have to find the radius first before we can actually solve this question. So if this is the diameter, the radius is half of that. It's only from here to here. So half of 20 would be 10 meters, and that gets plugged in for r. So A is equal to pi times 10 squared. A is equal to, well, 10 squared is 100 times pi, and then meters squared, because this is in meters, and then we would round that to the nearest tenth, so we would type in our calculator 100 times pi, and that gives us 314.2. And that's still meters squared, and this is an estimate. So really, these are our answers. We have 2 answers because they asked for both. You don't always be asked for both. All right, example 3. Find the area of a circle whose radius is 6.4 centimeters. So this one is just different because they tell you what it is instead of show you. It's actually kind of easier. They tell you r. So a is equal to pi times r squared. A is equal to pi times 6.4 squared. A is equal to, we do 6.4 squared, 40.96. And then that's times pi, and that is centimeters squared. And then to get our answer round to the nearest tenth, 40.96 times pi, 128.7. And that would be centimeters squared. So those are our two answers. So I forgot to mention, hopefully we all know the squared. A number squared is 3 squared would be 3 times 3. 6.4 squared would be 6.4 times 6.4. But there's a squared key on your calculator. Alright, so these are your 3 examples. This is what you'll see. I'm going to show you the next page where squared to do your work. It says I'm missing some. That's weird. Find the area of each circle for numbers 1 through 3. Leave your answer in terms of pi. I don't know where my number 1 is. Hopefully you guys have a number 1. If you don't, I'll fix that. But notice the directions. It says for 1 through 3, leave your answer in terms of pi. So pi is going to be your answer. And then 4 through 6, you round. So you don't have to do both every single time. Okay? All right, good luck. If you have any questions, please message me, email me. Whatever mode of contact you prefer, I will be there. Bye. It's given to you on the formula sheet. So A is equal to pi times r